So I guess I'll start with the topic. So this is the sixth and last lecture on the technological influences in art. It is a very broad topic, so it was a kind of challenging for me to just sort of pull out what exactly is important to share with you for this class. So what I've done, just for clarity, is to demarcate it into various chapters. So if you go to the third slide, so we'll first discuss tech and art in various industries. And this is largely for you to see that technology has really disrupted our industry because we're in the art and design field. And I'll show you or demonstrate to you what areas are really, really being disrupted. Then we'll discuss technological industry challenges because, as you know, technology may be good, it's an enabler to many things, but of course, it does do harm and it does have its own set of challenges. So we'll discuss that. Then we will discuss positive influences that tech lends to the arts. And this is, it's for you to embrace it. You know, that as much as people complain, oh, tech is stealing art jobs or it's taking away from the creatives, you need to almost look at these challenges as opportunities for you to grow and continue enhancing your skills in the arts. And then we'll discuss several high-tech artists where you're really harnessing the power of technology or new mediums to showcase new and very disruptive sorts of arts. And then we'll do a conclusion, right? So through the ages, technology and art have been intrinsically linked, and I think we've seen this from from ancient times. The pyramids at Giza, to if you go to Europe, Saint Peter's Basilica. Just look at how art has been infused in architecture and technology is being used from the basic sketches that we do to the grandest of things. Think laser lighting, think 3D printing. So I think when it comes to tech, it's really sort of woven into the arts, right? And today, the word technology is evoking a very different meaning, right? It's, it conjures up images of wires, of, electronics, AI, AR. I don't know if you've heard of these terminologies. Like, it's really sort of tech has woven into art. You can now really distinctively tell where tech ends and then where art begins. It's sort of very interwoven. And I'd like you guys to appreciate this because we're in this industry today and we're living in a modern world where the lines are becoming more and more blurred, right? I'll give an example. If there's anyone here who is looking to do interiors, right? Apparently, so I'm not an interior designer, but I've heard this. Apparently, there are agencies that have completely removed certain softwares from their system. So, for example, CAD. I don't know if you guys know ArchiCAD and CAD, just the ArchiCAD that we know for interiors. They've removed it. They are now moving to Revit. So you can imagine if you don't know how to use Revit, you're in trouble, right? If you're working for such an organization. So this is just to say that technology is also becoming it's becoming an issue, but it's also a good problem because it's also making things helping humans create things quickly, more efficiently, more affordably, and so on and so forth. Like when I was a student like you, we used to sketch by hand, everything, even posters. Like graphic designers used to sketch with your hand. So you can imagine by the time you do the typography, it's taken you like perhaps 2 hours just to write the name of the poster, the headline, right? Another, say, 2 days for you to do the drawing that is going to go onto the poster. So one artwork can even take you 1 week. But today, with technology and the computers we have in front of us, it's quick, right? You can whip up an invite or a poster even in 20 minutes, right? Am I wrong? Right? Yeah, so this is what we're discussing today, and we need to appreciate this, right? So there's been a widespread notion that it must be pretty tough to be an artist to create artworks these days. after all, technology has heavily dominated the world in the 21st century. And so, therefore, the question is, how can we compete in such a world, right? Because art in an old field and technology is a new field that's already taking the world by storm, right? So, for a lot of people, it's like we're losing that battle of art. The traditional art we know is being overtaken by technology, and like technology is the obvious winner. So I think that's essentially where we are at, where we're feeling, hey, art is really taking. Tech is really taking over our creativity. How will we practice? How will we make money? And so on and so forth, right? But I'd like you guys to just not really look at technology as a problem, but embrace it as an opportunity, right? So to be fair, that assumption can make sense to anyone that tech is taking over, but the reality is that technology is more of a friend than a foe, right? So we need to see as technology in art as a friend rather than a foe. And I'll just I don't know what you guys think. I don't know whether you guys feel like technology is taking over. Is this a debate? Can I open up to a debate, or are you guys clear that we should be very, very happy with the fact that technology is really, the positives outweigh the negatives? Do you see it that way, or do you feel like technology is really a negative for art and we are all losing out as artists, and you feel like this career should be scrapped, right? Because there's no need for us to study art and design. What do you guys think? I'd just like to get sentiments before we move on. Yes, yes.
I attended there was this exhibition at the museum,
Yes.
and there was this AI art that was being
Correct.
showcased
Showcased.
by
Yeah.
a specific artist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what bothered me is that the pricing of the AI art is similar to the pricing of traditional artists.
Yes.
And the people, the buyers, they can't really tell the difference, and they can't really tell this is AI art.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes the original artists feel underappreciated, because considering the time and effort they put into the work, and then a person just uses a computer command to like
To
give this
generate
type of art.
something.
I feel like it might be a challenge. I don't know how we cope with that, but yeah, that's a message.
Yes, so let me react to that. I like what you're saying, where there's competition between AI artists and traditional artists, and traditional artists are feeling like they're being shortchanged by those who are practicing AI art. So I think, granted, there are negative implications to say AI in art, like the example you have said, but like anything new, I always tell people, like anything new, like I don't know if you guys were aware, before Uber even stepped into other markets, there was a lot of uproar. Like when Uber came, people were like, what will happen to the guys for the taxi? I don't know if you guys realized there was a clash between the taxi guys, the normal taxis who would charge whatever. Like if say you're going to the airport today, if they wake up, they see there's traffic, they'll tell you it's 4K to the airport. Tomorrow they can tell you it's 2K to the airport, right? But when Uber came, it sort of like standardized things. It made things more affordable. So you could even go to the airport with an 800 bob and make it, right? So I think with anything new, just like in the example I've given you, there's always going to be a huge debate. There's going to be controversy around the issue. But of course, with time, people will adopt it, people will accept it, and it'll become part and parcel of how society will view it as normal. So what will happen is, I guess it'll be a question of let the best man win. Like sort of like it'll be fair game for everyone. You who does AI, you who does traditional art, you need to play your A game if you need to stay relevant, right? So you both will be still in society working together, but I guess the competition will just go higher, right? So I don't know what to say. I don't think we can judge right now, but it'll be interesting to see how AI, AR, particularly, will develop over the years and how people will adopt it, right? There's a lot of controversy around it. Apparently, you know, there are these things called ASI, and perhaps I'm jumping the gun, but there's so apparently there are levels of AI technology that AI from a basic level is okay. The basic level of AI is your Google Maps, the one that will help you navigate town. Then there's the second level, which is now a bit more superior. It can do more complex tasks. Like, for example, your Siri, the chatbots, your voice recognition, Siri, the ones that you can prompt them to do something. Now, that also they are not really a threat to humans. It is that um, third level. They're called ASIs, artificial super intelligence. Now it's that level of AI that is really a threat. And I think you guys have seen a lot of movies where robots have taken over the world and have destroyed, or humans have merged and become machine and are now one, and so on and so forth. So I think, let's just say, um, it's just a question of time. Let's see how it goes, right? Yeah, but right now there's a lot of debate. So we'll continue with some of the notes I'd prepared for you. So because of technology, there's now been a rapid and consistent rise in new things, and I think we've seen it. So we've seen new gadgets emerge. Um, I've seen even some of you have really cool tablets that can now draw. You quickly can draw analog, but it's on a digital tablet and it registers as a digital file. We've seen lots of softwares that can now help artists to create faster, more efficiently, and of course more affordably. These tools can be like your Adobe softwares like Photoshop, Revit, which I'd already discussed, and of course the tools that we're seeing today, Kina Chat GPT, Mid Journey, and so on and so forth. And these are all tools that are helping artists in creating digital art, right? So what I can say about this is that there's a lot, right? I can't really talk a lot about them. There are many, many tools out there, and I think you may know some you even use personally. But what has been discovered is that, these tools have helped artists make the process of creating an artwork a lot less stressful, right? As I described to you, we're moving from analog or even part analog, part digital to almost a digital experience. So essentially, technology is helping broaden the horizons of artists' creativity while limiting the problems that they may encounter. And of course, as I said, this is also very debatable, especially when it comes to market opportunities and competition, right? But another thing I wanted to say was, today, technology has become a prevalent influence in our society, and I guess its onus is on us as students, as artists, to embrace it. So I know there are people of the school of thought that they want to fight technology. I don't think as a creative you should fight technology. I think you should embrace it. If there are new tools, please adopt the new tools. Otherwise, you'll be rendered obsolete as a creative. So the idea is to just embrace the new tools, learn as fast as you can, upgrade to the new versions of the software so that you're always at par with the industry standards. I hope I'm making myself clear, right? So just to give a few examples, and this is just an example I took from a paper I wrote recently. AI for me is one of the most powerful technological advances that is really disrupting the art and design field, and apparently these tools. So increasingly, these tools of AI are disrupting not just the arts but other industries, agriculture, healthcare, space, studying the galaxy and the stars. These tools are really disrupting very, very many industries, right? And also, this includes engineered domains. So, engineered domains simply means the websites that you visit, the apps and the tools that you actually are using on your phone, right? And some of these platforms that harness the power of design, human infrastructure, and AI are like Zuri. I'd mentioned Zuri. Zuri is a very good one, a local one, because this chatbot is actually a product of Safaricom. Mid Journey, which of course is it's a prompt, it's a text to get a picture or an image app where it can create any image. You just write a text and it generates an image for you. And there's a lot of controversy around these generative AI tools. Also, Alexa. I use Siri. So if you have an iPhone, you have access to Siri. If you have Google, and Amazon, they also have one. So other domain applications that use technology and specifically AI include content recommendation. So whenever you're served up an ad, whenever you're on say YouTube, when you're listening to your music, this is just the power of technology happening. Chatbots, image recognition, machine translations, fraud detection, medical diagnosis, and autonomous vehicles. All these are using tech embedded in artistic outputs, whether they are products or services, right? So I hope I'm making sense, right? How technology is disrupting. And that's just one example of AI. We've not even discussed AR, not discussed 3D printing, we've not discussed so there are many, many. Just think of it as a very broad spectrum of technological tools that are really disrupting the space, the art space. So some of the other areas where tech is being applied in art is in museums and galleries. So artists aren't the only ones using technology. We're also starting to see public museums, galleries, they're also using technology in ways that would have, seemed impossible about 30, 40 years ago. And the public is using technology to appreciate and become connected with art. Nowadays, if you want to look at someone's art, say for example, Thandiwe Mrio, I think I mentioned this to you, you simply need to go to Artsy and you're able to even buy her art from there, right? If you can afford to. So you just go to artsy.net, search Thandiwe Mrio or whichever artist, even Osmond Mashara, or whichever artist you know, and it's like a digital gallery. You're able to see the works that are open for viewing, the works that are open for selling, for purchase, and you're able to make your purchase, right? So and this is e-commerce, what they call e-commerce, right? Where you can transact on a digital platform. So museums also are now curating their works online, so you no longer have to walk or travel so far away, say to the Louvre in France or to the Tate Museum in London for you to see an art piece. All you need to do is just go to their portal. Sometimes they do have collections that they showcase either from season to season and so on and so forth. So these are sort of just ways in which museums and galleries are using technology to ensure that they are tapping into their networks and getting, of course, viewership for their exhibitions, right? I think you've even heard of called what? Digital exhibitions, where you walk into a digital room and you pan around and you're able to actually see the art pieces like the way you'd be walking into an art gallery and so on and so forth, right? So so artists now are able to independently market themselves, create a dedicated following for their work, and sell their pieces online without the benefit of or hindrance of a middleman, agent, or gallery owner. So we're also starting to see artists also open up their e-commerce websites and sell online their art pieces, right? So that's just one way tech is sort of influencing the arts. The next one is waste reduction. So, technology has also helped reduce waste in the industry as a whole and for individuals. so because technology has the ability to share, to send, print media, traditionally we were printing media, but now you don't need to print, you just send it digitally, right? So, like right now, did I print any notes for you? Have I printed you any notes this for the duration of our course? All your classes have been done, let me call it semi-digitally, because I am appearing here in person, but your notes, I'm sending them to your WhatsApp groups, of which you just open it up on your phone and you're able to read, right? Or we project using a projector. So this prevents the waste of paper, which, as you know, is a very now becoming a precious commodity, because paper is made from trees, right? And cutting down of trees is something that is considered right now a no-no because of climate change. We want to keep our trees so that we can actually prevent the effects of climate change, right? So, and so on and so forth. Sorry. So yeah, so there's definitely less waste on the part on the individual. As I mentioned, artists can use technology to create sketches, to edit photos, to preview designs. Changes can also be made before a final product is made. And I think we're starting to see this a lot in interiors and architecture, where you create the model using 3D printing before you build the structure, right? Before you actually do the actual product, just saving you time, money, and resources, right? And as the last sentence says, this allows artists to use fewer material in their creative process and therefore reduce waste. So the next one is reduction of travel, time to take to travel. So apparently there are tools. So say you're an artist, right? And you're a painter. And you have, did you want to ask a question? Say you're an artist and you have paintings and you want to showcase them. You no longer have to walk to a gallery to ask them for space where you can showcase your art, right? Remember, you're going to pay them for the space, etc, etc. Right now, there are apps that you can use that can help you mock up your art like it's in a room. So there are apps like Art Rooms, Artsy, iArtView, and so on and so forth. This can help you choose the put up your work for clients to choose what they like and purchase. I don't know if I'm making sense. You almost need to go to these tools to see what they do. They basically help you as an artist mock up your art in a home environment, right? So they have a catalog of very nice spaces, like interior spaces, with templates where you can just mock up your art. And then what you do is you mock up your art on that template, and then you're able to showcase how your art would appear in someone's home, right? So these are tools that are being provided for um and so on and so forth. And then also it just saves you, the artist, a lot of time to walk to a client, or to travel to a client, or to travel to a gallery to display your wares. And I think I mentioned this. The other thing that tech can do for art is it can also it can make art more accessible to the public, especially for those who do not necessarily understand art, or who cannot afford either the time or the money to visit galleries or museums. In the same light, you may not be able to visit an exhibition because you can't afford to go for the exhibition. You can easily just go online after the fact, right? Like whether it was a YouTube exhibition, like sort of it was broadcast. You can actually go online and actually participate live, but online, and you don't necessarily need to go to the exhibition, right? And I think this is something that we're seeing more and more. Also, the influence of technology of the on the art industry is becoming important in conferences, particularly for the disabled. Apparently, there are conferences that are held for the disabled, and it works fine for them because of technology, right? So we're starting to see the importance of this by aiding people, um, you know, aiding people access the content through interactive means, right? Because as you know, people who are disabled, sometimes they have a problem. Perhaps they are blind, they can't see, but they're able to read, right? Braille. So we're able to see a lot of some conferences starting to embed technology that aids them to participate in these conferences, right? Like a normal person would, right? And enjoy the experience. Um, so I think this is something that you can do extra reading on. Like the image there is basically a conference on disability and development that was recently held in Doha, and they were discussing just sort of how technology can be used to make art more accessible, more tactile, and interactive for this specific sort of people, and the people are the disabled, right? So it'll be worth you looking into the literature. There's also another conference called the Leadership Exchange in Arts and Disability. They also do talk extensively about how they can ensure that these conferences can be more inclusive, right? Another thing that is sort of how technology is also influencing art is really, this is something that is happening every single day. I think all of you are on social media. You have experienced digital promotional ads that go on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You've been served up a lot of ads, and with the rise of social media, we're starting to see artists now making their artworks very visible. Like if you look on the left hand side of this slide, this lady is called Bisa Butler. She's a well-known artist in the US. She's actually Black American, and she's known for her quilts, her textile arts. So she does a whole mural or a whole art piece using different types of fabrics, and she stitches. Everything is stitched, right? So there's nothing here that is hand drawn. She literally stitches her art pieces, right? And she's become celebrated the world over because of her art, just because she's known online. And look, she has a huge following of over 300 followers on her socials, right? So this just goes to show you the power of technology in being a disruptor or being an enabler um, of of ensuring that people get to see your work, right? And also, it makes art become participatory. Like, for example, I've seen fashion designers actually do like bidding. You know, the way you go onto social media and you see an outfit, and and normally they'll just say this outfit, say it's a shift dress going for 3,000 shillings, and then after an hour when you check, it's written sold, right? So there's also this very interesting way where the audiences are also being asked to participate, say in purchasing some of these products, and it opens opportunities for artists. So I think technology is really, really becoming part and parcel. It's being part and parcel of the art, right? Yeah. And also, we're starting to see, of course, now artists also gaining a profit. Like unknown artists rising up the ranks. I think TikTok is a very good testament of people who don't even, they came from nowhere. You just see someone becoming a superstar, an influencer. The likes of, she's called Naisenya, or there's also another one called Elsa Majimbo. There are many, many artists who they were unknown like a few years back, and now they've risen to fame simply because they put their content on a digital platform, and people loved their work, and now they're multimillionaires. So I think there's something to be said about technology in this space, right? The next one is crowdsourcing. Now, does anyone know what crowdsourcing is? Does anyone have you heard the word of crowdsourcing? The word, yeah. So anyway, crowdsourcing is rallying the masses. It's like harambeing. It's like telling people, Here's my vision, help me um, help me bring it to life, either monetary, either in kind. Like, it's like telling people to changa for you, right? And it harnesses the power of the many to help fund projects, right? So we're also starting to see crowdsourcing as a practice emerging in this space. And you know, museums are also doing it. So in this example that you see on the left, there is so in 2015, the New York Public Library unveiled a new project called Immigrant City, because that city is really dominated by all races. So, for example, you'll find Latinas, you'll find Africans, you'll find Australians, you'll find Chinese, you'll find, of course, native Kenya Americans, and so on and so forth. So, what they did is they crowdsourced for content, right? Built around the premise that there's some important New York history that was buried, or it's part and parcel of what's going on, and they wanted people to actually participate and share some of the documents, right? And it's just really just to enrich in the history of the city. So let me just read what that screenshot says. So the New York Public Library presents the Immigrant City. That's the name of the project. And it said, join us in transcribing 19th and early 20th century real estate records from the Immigrant Savings Bank. These unique documents reveal the lives and dreams of immigrants who helped create modern New York, help unlock a vital piece of history. And then when you click the start button, it directed you to a microsite where you were able to upload content. So the rich history, whether it was, content from, so long as it's around the real estate records, you'd upload it, say this is sort of where my grandmother lived in New York. She was a slave. I don't know what. All those stories were actually harvested from a medley of people who actually participated. So that's called crowdfunding. And then you can imagine now the database of records that they collected based on this just one initiative. And I think these are things that we're starting to see more and more, where where people are now harnessing the power of the collective to actually enrich in the arts, or to allow participation, so anyone can become a participant of the art, right? Of the arts. And this is really a good example, right, of how this is done. Another area where technology is disrupting the arts, and this one I won't really belabor, is the security industry, particularly when it comes to authentication or protection of the arts. So we are starting to see, like in a museum, there are many, many ways they're doing it. We're seeing sensors being integrated, scanners being integrated, so that, we prevent theft of art pieces, because these art pieces, as you know, are very expensive, right? Also, there's security systems um, that are being put in place by staff members. These are security staff members who are always there 24 hours on the clock, checking to ensure that everything is secure and that they're able to catch the thieves in case there's an incident. And the image up there is just to show you at a glance how a gallery can invest in just security. Like, the investment is crazy, right? And I'll just read some of the things. Like, for example, number one is small wireless vibration sensors that are being placed behind paintings to detect the lightest finger tap. So if someone touches an art, an alarm can go off, right? So sometimes you're told not to go next to an art, you're told to stay away a certain meterage, because this can trigger an alarm and people will come and handcuff you. So these are just things that are being put in place. Number two is inventory numbers written on the canvas back and recorded in a register catalog, just to keep track of the number of art pieces in the gallery. At the bottom, number three is at the bottom center of the painting. There's metal boilerplate screws into both the frame and the wall, so that someone doesn't remove it and takes off with it. As we know, people like nicking pieces that are not secured properly. And then, of course, some of the art pieces are glazed to protect them from dust and other environmental things. Also, there are detectors for fire, temperature changes, and so on and so forth. That's number five. Number six could be around the edges of the room is a low rail, creating a border, discouraging people from getting too close to the artwork. This is purely a psychological thing. Also, number seven is motion detection devices beam directly over the painting. Sounds a chirping alarm to startle the too close observer. So if you come too close, there's motion sensor, and so on and so forth. Like there are many tactics. I won't belabor, but this is technology, that is being used to ensure that art is protected, right? And of course, the usual general ones are also put in place, like fire alarms, sprinklers that are overhead, temperature controls, and so on and so forth. So I think look at how technology is now becoming part and parcel of art, and this is something that needs to be celebrated. The next one I'd like to discuss is technology and art forgery. Now, this is a big one. I don't know if you guys know that 50% of the art you see in the world is forged. Did you know that? 50% of art is forged. In fact, I read it today. So the Fine Arts Expert Institute, they came out with the shocking statistics. Like, can I even qualify it further? What you see on the roadside is 100% fake when it's an art piece. So anyway, it is sad, but this is the reality that and I think to your question, I think you'd asked a question about AI. AI is actually having that issue. There's a big controversial issue around how AI is infringing on copyrights. Most of these generative AI tools are pulling trademark and patented art content to generate and recreate other pieces of art. And that's a huge issue. That's a big legal issue around IP. And it's really unfortunate. But there's also the analog version where we have forgers who actually can recreate an art piece exactly, like particularly in China. I don't know if you guys have been to House of Leather. Have you guys been to House of Leather? Well, let's just say where all that stuff comes from, that market it comes from, those are, and I'm not giving a sweeping so I'm giving a very generalist example just to show you that there are people who are experts. The Chinese are known to be experts in forging, right? And we won't belabor. If we start talking about phones, I think we've seen that. If we start talking about fashion brands, I think we've seen how some of these products that are coming from Asia, um, as as Gucci are not really Gucci, or as Samsung are not really Samsung, and so on and so forth. So I think while technology plays a lesser role in helping the con artists to create their frauds, it does help security entities like the FBI and other agencies to inspect suspected fakes and establish their verisimilitude. So that's just to say their originality, right? The best the best forgeries are painted by very talented artists who imitate the original creator's style. So unfortunately, we also have tools that are helping forgers copy. Like there's a tool called the Google Art Project. It has this brush stroke level detail, um, and images of thousands of works of art could help forgers by allowing them to easily imitate the style of original art. So basically, what that means is that there are certain tools like this one that can help you actually recreate or redraw an artwork and pass it off as its own. And let me just say it here now. It is not right to copy and commercialize. I'll repeat. It is not correct to copy and commercialize. Please learn to realize that there's a difference between copying for learning's sake. Like say I want to copy and learn how to draw the face of Mona Lisa, for example. But then now, when you start now selling that work as yours and you copied it, that's not ethical. I hope you're getting the difference. Do not commercialize something that is not yours, because that means you're forging, you're actually infringing someone's copyrights, and it's called plagiarism. You're copying someone else's work and passing it off as your own, and you're also just gaining you're gaining by, you're gaining money, you're gaining by commercializing it. Basically, you're getting money for it. So that shouldn't be the case. You should always ensure that you do authentic work, particularly when you're trying to sell it. Am I making sense, guys? Yeah, because this is a very big issue, not just worldwide, but also generally within the continent. It's a very big problem we have, and I wouldn't want it to be a problem that you carry in the work world. So please be very careful about this. Um, Forgers are doing all sorts of crazy things. I think you've heard of wash in Kenya. People are actually creating currency, and it's a big cartel, right? People making fake money. You go to a say you want to exchange some dollars, you go to a bureau, they pass it through the runner, they're like, madam, uko na fake money, it's really wrong, right? And you've been given that money by someone, you can't go back to them, and so on and so forth. So we're seeing forgers even using basic chemical processes and tricks to visually age artworks and pass it off as their own. Say, for example, you can do a copy of a Pablo Picasso, use some chemical to age the canvas, and then go say, I have an original Picasso. We're seeing people do this. And I think these are wrong things. These are now, I guess, the negatives of tech, right? And we really need to look out for it, right? Um, on the other hand, we are seeing now tech also helping people detect some of these forgeries. So, for example, there's X-ray technology, infrared technology, paint chemistry analysis, something called dendrochronology or wood dating or carbon dating, that is now helping people to discover whether an art piece is authentic or a forgery. So I think tech is also helping us, but yeah, as you know, it's really really difficult sometimes when people really, like, they go all out, to create a forgery. Sometimes it's very hard to detect, even by passing some of these methods that are helping discover forgeries. So I'd like to just mention that, if you look at your left hand, there's an image there, and the image is called The Portrait of a Young Woman. It was painted in 1769 by an artist called Jean Honore. Yeah, Jean Honore, someone. Fragonard, right? And this painting is really beautiful. If you look at it, it's a Rococo art piece. It's was painted over 200 years ago. Right now it must have huge value, in terms of how much, if you'd want to own it, how much you'd have to part with. Yet, if you look at the right, this is the very same painting, but a fake, right? And it's a Chinese made copy, and it was basically created by a gentleman called, not created, but it was owned. The fake was owned by a gentleman called Doug Fishburne, and he revealed that he revealed it to be a fake hanging in his exhibition, on an otherwise bona fide fine art as a bona fide fine artwork. So what he did is he passed off a fake as a genuine artwork in an exhibition. This guy called Doug Fishburne, right? And it's very sad that in 2015 he actually displayed it in a gallery called Dulwich Picture Gallery. It's in London on the 26th of July. So you can imagine people who came there and perhaps they made an inquiry of this art piece. They assumed it was the actual real art piece of this gentleman called Jean Honore Fragonard. Sorry, it's a very hard French name. But this is a situation where you really wonder how people can go to great lengths to create forged art, and even exhibit and even sell them, right? Okay, he didn't sell it. He actually didn't sell it, but he did mention that this was actually a Chinese replica. And I mean, even if you're to see the replica, wouldn't you say it's actually a genuine one? Wouldn't, if you had seen the replica and not seen the original, perhaps you saw the original online, you'd have assumed it's actually the real deal, right? Isn't it very close? Can't you see it's very close? So, I mean, the challenge is there that people want to gain from other people's works, and this is a huge, huge problem that the industry is really grappling with, right? So I'll stop there and just ask, does anyone have any questions around technology and its influences in art? Because I want to just now wrap up with the technology industry challenges, some of which I've already highlighted. Anyone with a question? No one has a question? Anything that I've said that sounds controversial or that needs a debate? Huh? So everything is okay, right? You seem to agree to largely what I'm saying, right? Yeah. So I mean, read a lot. There's a lot about art forgery. I can't really exhaust it. It's a very yes. You have a question?
Okay.
Yes.
Mine was to ask, will really AI art make artists lose their jobs? Mine was to say that there are certain companies that totally don't allow AI generated art, like the Disney line. So in such a case, I'd say that it will be upon artists to go and look out for more opportunities that will allow them to express their natural creativity without compromise.
Mm, yeah. So that's a very good question, but it's also a very hard question because it depends. It's a case by case. So I'll give you an example. So the question he's asking is that will AI be banned? Is that what you asked? No, I don't think it will. So you can't stop technology. I mean, so that's the reality is we can't stop engineers, creators, inventors from coming up with what they're coming up with. What we can do is we can, so I guess the onus is on the governments, policymakers, leaders to to put policies in place that can guide the public or the owners of these products of how to actually use them. So I guess it's something called responsible AI. I don't know if you've heard of responsible and ethical AI. We need to start seeing policy catching up with this technology. The unfortunate truth is that technology is faster or more ahead than policy and control. I think you guys know this. By the time people have written policies, we're on the next version. By the time people have written policies for 2.0, we're on 2.4, and so on and so forth. So, just to answer your question, the onus is in the institutions that recognize AI as being a problem to actually say how they'd like to actually conduct their affairs. So it's up to you, it's up to your principle, it's up to their principle or their standard. So I'll give you an example. Getty Images. Do you guys know Getty Images? You guys know Getty Images? Yeah, so Getty Images recently, I think this was in 2021, 2022, they wrote email and newsletter to all their creators, right? Because they are photographers, they're illustrators on their platform. They wrote letters to their content creators and told them, we have banned the uploading of any art that has been used using generative tools like Midjourney, Diffusion, DALI-E, and so on and so forth. So they literally wrote a memo and said they aren't. Whereas, do you guys know Shutterstock? Shutterstock is a full competitor of Getty. They, on the other hand, embraced it. They said, we're opening a section for people who have AI AI images and photography. If you want to submit your work, submit it on this section. So you see, it's a question of principle, and it's really rests on the owners of the platforms, and of course, from a macro scale, the originators of these tools need to practice ethical ways of using the technology because there are huge negative implications. I don't know if I answered your question.
And then another question. I think art should be redefined because there are people who are now. There's a new category of artists called AI artists. So, will that piece of art qualify to be called an art if truly it was generated through a computer? And yeah.
Yes, it is. So just like the way we have graphic designers, we have interior designers, and now we have service designers, system designers, AR designers. Yes, it is just a new category. So remember, as I said, treat challenges as opportunities. I'm a big philosopher. I'm a big believer of that philosophy. Let's not block or ignore or say we don't want, because when you block something, you're left behind. You'll be left behind, and these people are making money and they are continuing. But I think we always need to look at practicing it responsibly. That's why I keep talking about ethical, responsible use of technology in art. Let's start looking at things like that. And as I said, policies have not caught up with the technologies, and therefore lines are still blurry, definitions are still being defined. It's all a work in progress. But with time, like in 5 years, even perhaps 3 years' time, we'll be able to define what is an authentic AI, for example. Right now, we can't. We can't say that AI is authentic or not. How? We perhaps don't have the capacity, the expertise, or the tools to check. But with time, we will get there because these are new and emerging technologies. And you've preempted my next sort of slides to share with you to just start seeing that the industry is continuously being disrupted, not just in the AI space, in other fields, right? So we'll go into techno. I don't know if there's anyone who wants to make a comment. Otherwise, we can carry on. So, technology industry challenges. So, there are many, many, many. I can't list all of them. I'll just quickly go through some. So, despite its benefits, and I think we all know the benefits, we've just talked about them, technology poses some challenges to the industry. The first challenge is the initial cost of installation. If you're looking to say get the latest version of Revit, you have to cough up a lot of money, right? Please don't pirate. But I guess, I won't speak about that. But the cost of installation is always very high. For new technology, that's something that is always an impediment to the industry. Second, the cost of upgrades, since new and improved technology is released every 6 to 8 months. So it simply means somewhere in your kitty, every year you need to be upgrading. That's expensive, right? Just like phones. Everyone wants the latest, and the latest costs an arm and a leg, right? Then the third challenge is that technology has made copyright infringement much easier. And as I mentioned, yes, this is indeed so. We're seeing a lot of plagiarism. Even just to start with Chat GPT. We're not too sure whether that copywriter really wrote their copy or whether they just dropped they put a prompt on Chat GPT and came up with a whole essay or a whole advert. It's really hard to tell, right? And this is really sad, but it also is perhaps helpful. So you don't know what to say, you don't know how to react. It's helpful, but it's also harmful, right? So anyway, then the fourth challenge comes in the form of privacy issues stemming from social media. So again, AI is also a culprit when it comes to privacy. I think you've seen, and if you enter any website, prudent websites will actually tell you this. Before you enter a website, there's always this banner. I don't know if you've ever seen a banner that says you it's an opt-in, and it'll ask you to accept the cookies. Have you seen those questions of, by entering this website, you accept that you are there are gonna be cookies that are gonna follow you, algorithms that are gonna follow your IP and track things, your movement on the website. Have you clicked that thing without knowing? That's AI. That's accepting to say that there's some data that's gonna be collected, like which pages you visited. Sometimes even when you're filling the form, it could ask you for your age, it could ask you for where you live, say Kenya, and so on and so forth. So it'll even know. So by the time this website does their audit, or their analytics, they're able to know, on this day, the 19th of May, um, 3,000 Kenyans visited our website, right? So literally because you actually opted into, without knowing that they're collecting data from you. And in Kenya, I must say this because I wrote it in a paper. In Kenya, I must warn you that these phones that we have network providers who are really, really infringing on privacy using their AI. And I'll give you an example. Who uses Tala and all these other loan borrowing apps? Who uses them? Who uses them? Do you know that they are actually asking one questions that infringe on privacy? Things like how much do you earn? Or things like, or they also are saving content that they shouldn't. For example, how much you transacted yesterday. And they're even able to now then tell whether you're a student, whether you're a high net worth individual, whether you're, like, because every month they're able to just on a dashboard be able to say, so and so Amara earns 30,000 per month based on her loaning practice, like how much loan she takes from us, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of infringement that is coming from third-party apps that are partnering with the network providers on your phones, and you need to be aware of. And this is also going directly to the government and to banks and so on. It's also being passed to fourth, fifth parties. So I think for me, I must say, without regulation, technology is really a problem, right? So anyway, so positive influences that technology lends to the arts. I think for me, I want to say I didn't want to dwell on the negatives. I wanted to dwell on the positives. So advances in accessibility to art and increased profitability, coupled with the absence of significant challenges presented by technology and the reduction of the carbon footprint of the market, all leads to the conclusion that the impact of technology on the art market is in the net positive. So basically, there are more positives to tech in art than there are negatives, in my eyes. In some people's eyes, it could be the reverse, right? Um, It also is important to note that contemporary art has greatly been influenced by the rapid developments of digital technology and by the astonishingly progression in the introduction of new, more attractive and tougher materials that artists can work with, right? So, and generally because of these innovations, um, we are starting to see an expansion, as he had mentioned, the expansion of the horizons of creativity and an opening up of new frontiers. So please start seeing new ways of doing your work. I can't emphasize this enough. Don't just be fixated on how you've been doing things. Keep evolving, keep innovating, because that's how you stay ahead. That's how you keep getting a market for your work. And this is something I can't really, talk enough of. Let's embrace the new and the bold and the disruptive, right? So I'll finally close with some high-tech artistic works, but I'd like to pause just to see if everyone is paying attention. Um, Tell me if there's anything that I have perhaps not mentioned when it comes to technology um, creating a positive impact for the arts. Is there anything I haven't mentioned that perhaps you'd like to hear about? Because I'm coming to the conclusion. Is there anything I haven't really quite discussed that you feel I should pay attention to, or at least discuss it? So I think the onus is on you to read a little bit more about some of these emerging tools, because I can't mention all of them. So we'll now look at disruptive artists, and I'm calling them high-tech, a loose term. I'm using the term high-tech artists' works. So the first slide is an art piece. Let's call it artistic chemistry by a gentleman called Kim Keevers. Can someone tell me how he achieved this? Can someone take a guess? Does someone know? Can someone tell how this was achieved? This art piece. No one can take a guess. So anyway, Kim Keever is a modern day hydroponic equivalent of Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock is a very famous artist. So this American author has devised a method in which he drizzles paint in a 200-gallon fish tank, creating some magnificent effects before taking photos of the colorful chemical reactions. So that's all he does. He literally just drizzles paint, and he has, I guess, a camera on a tripod. Quickly, he takes shots, right? And then, of course, he then um, digitally cleans up, I guess, one of the best images, and that's how he creates his art. So his work is so amazing that it fascinates you whilst also leaving you puzzled or questioning which medium you're actually observing. So I'm sure that's why you guys drew blanks and I asked you, you're like wondering how did he do it. So he literally just uses colored liquid. Okay? So the next one, can someone take a guess? Mm-hmm.
Laser carbon.
Yes, I think it's even written. It's even written there. So anyway, so Eric, so just to conclude on Kiva, Kiva learned how to manipulate chemistry thanks to his NASA experience and scientific background, right? Something that can also be said to this gentleman. So the gentleman that we're looking now, this art piece is by a gentleman called Eric Stanley, and he's also an engineer. So remember, it may look simple and easy to do, but when you try and do it, you might find yourself with a hot mess. There's a technique they use. So what I'm just doing is a very simplistic description. Now look at Eric Stanley's work. He actually paper cuts artworks, expanding the traditional use of mediums as he works with lasers, shredding with it upwards of 250 sheets of archival paper. So this is essentially laser making work, and it's actually paper, believe it or not. So the most impressive aspects of his production is the number of details he's able to achieve as his pieces are incredibly detailed and miniature. So he cuts and then he makes things. So this is just a zoom in shot of how detailed his work looks. Isn't his work amazing? Yeah, it's really amazing. This level of detail can take a layperson years and years to achieve. Okay, the next one. Can someone tell me what we're looking at? Okay, sorry, I've already written them on the screen. But has anyone encountered this art piece? So, what we're looking at is actually Pyramidi. It's an art piece that was created by an artist called Yuri Suzuki, and he basically he knows how to engineer things through. He's an engineer. He knows how to engineer things. So let me explain. So Yuri Suzuki is a Japanese designer, and he heavily relies on science, right? He's mostly famous for his works named Pyramidi, a piece made out of a trio of robotic instruments. You'll see it on the next page that are deconstructed versions of a piano, a guitar, and a drum. So those triangular shapes you're seeing are actually, they can make the sounds of those instruments. And this project was actually, so the fascinating skill of the engineer is engineering a piece like Pyramidi would be impressive enough, but Suzuki takes it another step forward and grants it an artistic note. So they actually can play music. So let me explain how. He worked with Will.i.am. So this project was actually commissioned to him by Will.i.am. I think you guys know who Will.i.am is, eh? Spelt William, but it's Will.i.am. You know the artist, the music artist? Will.i.am. Next page. The gentleman there is called Will.i.am. So he commissioned Yuri to produce these three instruments, as I'd mentioned. They are musical instrument robots. They are mechanical musical instrument robots that are capable of playing any music from MIDI. So MIDI is sort of like a tool, it's an application. And then what they did is they put them in a stage and projected them. So what you see on the previous slide is actually a 3D projection of an actual, pharaoh, but the instruments, the musical instruments, the robotic musical instruments are what you see in front of this projection. I don't know if I'm making sense. So there was a whole concert that was done by this musician called Will.i.am. And I guess you know what? Read about it. So the installation content 3D head projection mapping was designed by two other designers. One is called Pasha Shapiro, the other is called Ernest Weber, right? So it was a collaborative exercise. Yuri did the 3D instruments, robotic instruments, and then, of course, the 3D projection for Will.i.am's concert was done by these other two artists, right? So the next one, can someone tell me what the next one was made? Yes?
Gunpowder and dramatic installation.
Well done. I'm really impressed. You said gunpowder and what?
Some dramatic installations.
Mm, good, yeah. So the artist is called Kai Gao Kiang. He actually is a Chinese author and he loves to experiment with the explosive nature of gunpowder and its modern variations, initiating what he loves to call ignition events. After the controlled explosion, we are left with traces of an image that are literally burnt into the surface. He also works in installation and performance and often combines many elements of engineering and science in order to achieve the desired effect. So he really plays with gunpowder, right? And he's not even, so he calls himself an author. He doesn't call himself an artist. Next, can someone tell me how this one is created? The one by Michael Manning. Can someone tell me how these paintings, the three series, how they are created? Or take a guess? So Manning is, I guess for those who paint analog, like traditionally with paint, they'd be fighting this gentleman. Manning starts every single art with a computer program. So acting out the experience of dabbling in oil paints and later printing them, imitating the physical appearance of an actual acrylic paintbrush. So in many ways, Michael Manning's practice in painting, video, sculpture, and computer-based works explores the relationship between technology and analog. So he plays with computer, like the softwares like Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, and whichever other tools, and he creates this painterly effect that you see. So this is not painted by hand; it's painted. It's painted digitally. Finally, I think this one is obvious. It's a laser light show. So these works are the incredible shows of Raphael Lozano Hema, and he's known as a master installer of lasers. Huge projects, and they're very complex. I don't know if you guys know. So this is not fireworks. There's a difference. Laser shows and fireworks are very different. So lasers, imagine installing lasers across the city, right? So you need to have a map for you to create this. You need to have a map and directly get it, like be very exacting. And normally they're very complex because they fuse light with audio, you know, and it's a whole show and it's choreographed and so on and so forth. So he's known as a master, and also his installations are based on science, depending on effects only modern technology are able to provide. So this creative mind is a Mexican installer, and you can commission him to actually do impressive laser pieces, and he has impressed or astonished audiences worldwide. So he's just commissioned to say an opening of a town hall, or or a building or a museum, or a tour of an artist. He's commissioned to actually do shows using laser lighting, right? Mm, so I'd like to conclude. So, in conclusion, there is no question that contemporary artists are facing increasingly more complex and complicated challenges to presenting distinctive artworks in the face of the many recent technological advances that have expanded and diversified the art world, right? Today, artists are finding it more challenging than ever to present original and innovative ideas, and they need to exert themselves and stretch their imagination to succeed. Moreover, the increase in the state of tension that generally surrounds us has become today the strongest force and has among the strongest impact, and is a primary motivator for artists to push themselves and encourage them to continue their creative endeavors without stopping. In summary, tech has undoubtedly changed art and culture as we know it. Only time will tell how great those changes will be. So my bibliography list is a bit sketchy, but the idea is that there's a lot of reading here. If you'd like to know more about the artist's work or how technology is influencing art, please do extra reading. Um, I'd encourage you to also start looking within yourself as an artist and see how you can stand out as a unique creator in these times. As you've seen, people out there are disrupting the industry so hard. You can't just sit there and just say, "Oh, I know Revit and I'll only be an interior designer." Start exploring other things or other areas that will make you stand out as a unique creator of this time. Thank you for listening to me. I hope it wasn't a long lecture, and I wish you all the best in your examinations next week. Asante.